Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and federal litigator Vikas Bajaj, along with Eisner Gorin, criminal defense attorney Robert Hill. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on. I want to play some sound. We have a Republican and a Democrat on Judge Boasberg's decision here. Watch.
Judge Boasberg will go down in history as a great judicial hero for what he's doing here, because he is trying to put up a huge stop sign against the lawlessness.
But where are the Democrats applauding the fact that southern border crossings just hit a historic low?
Vic, what do you think about the contempt charge?
Well, thankfully, I'm not appearing in front of Judge Boasberg anytime soon, so I'll tell you what I think. This judge's ego is severely hurt. I'm looking at a 46-page decision here, and what it says is, hey, I shouldn't have listened to this case. It was in the wrong courtroom. I made a mistake, but I did give you an order, and why didn't you listen to it? He's asking for information that transpired in a span of maybe 8 hours in a fast-moving effort to deport known criminals and gang members, information that really cannot be adhered or obtained by the government in the time he wanted. So he's personally offended. The problem is there's no one there to point the finger at, to hold in contempt, to say you are the one solely responsible. He says you have two choices: rat on the other DOJ employees and tell me who's in charge so I can hold them in contempt, or purge the inaccuracy and the fault, which could be as simple as a video feed to cecot. Here's your due process, and you're done.
Meantime, Trump administration going after New York Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud. Andy McCarthy, same thing that she went after Trump for, basically. Andy McCarthy had this to say about it. Watch.
People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw wild parties. She, I think, misused a consumer protection statute to try to concoct a theory of fraud, even though there were no fraud victims, based on Trump's purported inflation and misstatements about his real estate assets. And essentially, it looks like she's left herself in a position to be accused of the exact same thing.
And the accusation, by the way, is falsifying records to meet certain lending requirements.
That's my understanding, Trace. I believe she falsely claimed that a new property she was buying was going to be her primary residence to get a more favorable interest rate, and in another case potentially misrepresented the number of units in a property to get a more favorable loan. I mean, that's classic mortgage fraud. It's a fun story because of the hypocrisy angle, right. Obviously. She famously said no one is above the law and people in powerful positions need to be held to account just like the small people, and you know, she may find herself on the wrong end of that standard now. Typically, you might want to defend yourself by saying I took bad advice from a lawyer, but that's a little tough when you're the state attorney general of a large state like New York.
Meantime, California Governor Gavin Newsom suing Trump to end the tariffs. Here's the California Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Trump does not have the authority to impose these tariffs. He must be stopped. Congress hasn't authorized these tariffs, much less authorized imposing tariffs, only to increase them, then pause them, then imminently reinstate them on a whim.
Vic, does he have the power?
I mean, I think Rob Bonta's right, other than the fact that in 1974, Congress gave the president this very power as part of the executive branch to put out tariffs if there's an issue with national security, with trade being abused, and the very things the Trump administration has pointed out. Here's a little bit of advice. Lawyers will always tell you a case is great when they're getting paid by the hour. Citizens who are taxpayers should be offended by these actions that we know are going to be unsuccessful against this administration.
Meantime, the New York Post writes the following about the murder suspect Karmelo Anthony. He says, quote, the Texas teen accused of fatally stabbing a high school football star at a track meet allegedly lives in a $900,000 home that he's renting with his family inside a luxurious gated community, despite requesting that a judge lower his $1 million bond because of financial difficulties. The family also has a GoFundMe in excess of $450,000, Robert, and they just bought a brand new Cadillac.
Well, this is just terrible optics. You know, thinking what I would think if I was his defense attorney. You know, the only hope we have in a case where we have an incredibly tough lift to show that it's some kind of self-defense, to stab somebody because they pushed you, or maybe he had a psychological issue. I mean, you're trying to save this kid's life, and he's buying a new Cadillac at the exact time when he needs to be trying to garner any sort of public sympathy or goodwill from the public. There's the potential jury pool for this case. So yeah, unbelievably bad judgment, very damaging to his defense.
Robert, Vic, thank you both.